Having the dreams of being home and waking up and going, oh my God, I'm still here. That alone, I cannot. There is no words in any dictionary that I can tell you the feeling that brings upon a person. That is something that only another person that goes through that would understand that. The reality, that the dream that was so real. You were living, you were home, you were eating at Burger King, you were with your kids if you got kids, the family, in my case the beach, the beautiful blue skies, and you wake up and it's the same dusty place, the same shooting, the same helicopters, the same sirens, the same old Groundhog Day. My name's Javier, pastor. I'm 45 years old. I grew up in Chicago. I was born in Cuba. I came to this country at a very young age. I like to consider myself an Irish Cuban. My father's side of the family is they're Irish Americans. It's a long story how my grandfather met my grandmother in Tampa, and I was born in Cuba. I came to this country at the age of 4. I always consider myself foremost an American. I love my country. I tell a lot of people I'm as American as apple pie. I just wasn't born on this rock. Went into the Air Force into a communications field. I served 4 years, my first 4 years in North Texas in a base called Shepherd Air Force Base in Wichita Falls, Texas. And then in 1988, I got out and went into the reserves, thinking I was going to, be able to play volleyball, and that was the image that the Gardner Reserve had. The Gulf War came around. I spent 8 months out in Saudi Arabia, and nothing's ever been the same since then. I saw deployment for the Gulf War, and I also ended up deployed to Kosovo, the Afghanistan theater of operation, and twice to Iraq. And I wasn't ready for the last time. Nothing prepares you for that. I was as gung-ho as any other American. I was proud to be there, and I saw this Army guy coming up. And we were on our way back from meeting. He was coming up, and like everybody, I always say hello. I'm proud of all our GIs. I said, hey, what's up, GI? How's it going? And the guy stopped, puts both his hands on my shoulders, looks at me, and he goes, I thought I knew you, and kept walking. Eventually, towards the middle and the end of my rotation in Iraq, I understood where this young man was at. Life became monotonous, it didn't matter, and only those people that you worked with around you became everything, your whole world. People back home have no clue as to how hard it is just to be able to get a line back home and to call. So eventually, you want to call home, you want to reach home, but either your workload, the mission needs, the dynamics of being in Iraq start to curtail that and change it. When I came home, the dreams of being back in Iraq caused me to have sleep deprivation. I couldn't sleep. My sleeping patterns were terrible. My wife would wake me up, babe, you're bouncing in the bed. And eventually she started to realize that she knew just by my reactions in bed that I was having a nightmare of being in Iraq. I knew it wasn't me, and I couldn't put my finger on it. My civilian job was out of control. While I was gone, no one covered for me. I came back to 300 plus emails. I'm a lone technician maintaining 7 facilities for the county hospitals in the south end of the county. And my job load, which is normally anywhere from 20 to 30 work orders a week, I came back after 8 months, I came back to almost 400 or 500 work orders. Where do you start? The insanity was no different than Iraq. I was so distraught coming home with the way people were talking. They had their opinions about it, and I'm one of those that if you haven't experienced it, please keep your opinions to yourself, or at least be courteous to know that maybe there's someone around you that doesn't need to hear it. But so many people are grandiose, and they have that grandiose that they want people, the philosophical arguments. Well, it made me so sick that I started actively looking to redeploy back to Iraq. I just felt like I didn't fit in back home. And one particular Saturday, I told my father that I was actively looking to be shipped back to Iraq. I was volunteering to go back, and my father turned around and told me, son, you've done your fair share for this country. You've seen many operational theaters. You're up there in age. Your children are getting up to age. We're all proud of you, and maybe you should start to prioritize things. And if you go back, that would destroy me, probably kill me. A week later, my father died. He died of natural causes, unbeknownst to anybody. I never realized that I was starting to suffer from what nowadays they call post-traumatic stress disorder. It has nothing to do with seeing blood and guts. I did see my fair share of wounded. I volunteered in the hospital. I did see my fair share of firefights. The heat didn't matter. The attacks eventually didn't matter. It didn't matter if a round hit close or hit far away. You just sympathized with those who were at the receiving end. And the longer you were there, the more numb you came to the world. Nothing mattered. You just did your job. You were a robot. And when I came home, I continued with that robot way of life, thinking, eating, everything. It was all automatic. Give you an example of my flashbacks were so severe. About 4 months after I was home, because my father's death, we decided to go to Disney World. And what happens at Disney at the Magic Kingdom at 9 o'clock? They have the fireworks. Well, I had my back turned to where the fireworks were, and the first rockets went off. I heard the swoosh, the boof sound that you hear, and instinctively, as I'm turning around, the explosions happen. I remember distinctively diving, and I'm in the air, spread eagle, with my hands going, this is embarrassing. Because I realized instinctively I dove for cover, and when I hit the ground, I hit the bushes, I got up and I looked at my family, and my family's jaws were on the ground, and my kids were, they had no clue. That moment, I knew there was problems. By this time, my drinking was getting out of hand. Like most military guys, we drink heavily, and I had a mental breakdown. I don't remember it. All I know is that I started seeing a psychiatrist, but like most people, you don't tend to tell the truth. And he put me on medication, which I failed to tell him that I was drinking. And I had a very, very severe reaction to the medication with the alcohol. So much so that I almost ended up killing my wife. I blacked out, and I had a flashback to Iraq, and I attacked my wife and a neighbor that came to her aid. I don't have recollection until a Tuesday night. That's 4 days, 90-something hours later. I wake up in the VA's crisis center in their ward, and I had, through a little bit of therapy, I started to regain what I call like a slideshow. I had no memory as to how I got from this point to this point, whether I was at home or wherever I was. I just had a snapshot of this, a snapshot of here, a snapshot of seeing my wife with blood in her mouth, and not knowing what happened, how it happened, and the mental anguish that one goes through from that. I can understand and sympathize with people that have Alzheimer's, because it's so terrible to lose your mind and want to remember things, and you can't remember it. You can't. How How could someone like me have done that to someone that I love? In my downfall, my emotional breakdown, I tried to end my life. I don't remember it. I remember thinking that if I was willing to give my life up for my country, I was willing to give up my life for my family. And apparently I acted. I'm one of the many statistics, another statistic that I tried to end my life. I don't remember except having some pills in my hand. I know it was in my mom's house, which is a block and a half away from where I live. How I got there, I don't know. And I knew she had sleeping pills, but I had already taken all the Ambients that were given to me. We're human, we're going to make mistakes. And the military, you can't make a mistake. And if you make a mistake, you're going to have to own up to it, and there's some kind of repercussion to that. And most of us are taught that failure is not an option. So people internalize this and they start to really dwell on it, and they don't give themselves credit that you cannot learn success without failure. Success is nothing more than what is in you. Success has nothing to do with monetary, has nothing to do with physical or commercial wealth, none of that. It has to do with internal worth and how you view yourself in the world. We know so much more about the brain today, and the brain gets sick just like the stomach, just like a cold, like anything else, and it's very resilient and it does heal. What this meditation and vibration therapy is, it's using sound. It's not using any kind of chemical of any sort introduced into the body to get you to where your body naturally produces or goes into those states. And once you learn how to feel it, you can easily start to fall into it, and you go with the flow. My best example was, until I didn't know how to be drunk, I didn't know what being drunk felt like. Until I didn't connect with the buzz, I didn't know what being buzzed was. The first time I put it on, and the morning therapy, the afternoon therapy, it tells you in the recordings to use it for at least 30 days. I did that for 30 days, consecutive days, nonstop, 3-4 times a day. Each one, I would listen to the therapy of the morning therapy during lunch. People at work were looking at me funny because I was walking around with headphones and this MP3 player hanging on my side, and that was immediately within a month, 2 months, people started noticing the difference. I don't consider myself a Martin Luther King. I don't consider myself a John Kennedy or anybody, but I do see that our society emphasizes too much on material things, and we're losing what is to be an American. An American isn't about being born here. It's a way of life. It's believing in it, treasuring it, and nurturing it. And thank God there's many people who want to help other Americans. And the Life program for me has removed my anxiety, my flashbacks, my anger. I'm on no medications anymore. I don't suffer with the deep depression that I have been suffering with. The meditations that I've learned through the Life program has helped me heal internally. Because if you don't heal yourself, you can't help no one else.